How's it going, internets? I hope you're having a lovely day. It's that time again. It's time to get into some animation, time to get that imagination all revved up, get into some creativity, and it's time to get inspired. And today's inspiration comes from Sergio Toppi, and if you're not familiar with his work, check right over here. I love his stuff. I've recently come across his work, and I'm just astounded by it. I think he's got such a unique style and really takes the kind of graphic novel, comic book illustration in a whole different direction that's really, really amazing. Really, he just breaks up some ideas of how normally like a comic book or a graphic novel page should be laid out, and pushes it to different bounds. And I'm just in love with this stuff. You can see here just the way that he uses color. I think I really like the soft, almost watercolor kind of feel of his work, and the way that he plays with perspective and the paneling here, and then using the panel medium almost as the layout itself, which is really interesting there too. And then some of his other work, he really breaks up form and perspective and composition and layout to really come up with just a new way to present imagery that I really enjoy. He's got a great sense of ability to capture character and emotion and expression. Just great stuff. This piece really reminded me a lot of kind of a Mobius feel to it. I really like his color choices. I feel it. It's this character down here is really, really great too. I love what he does here. You really push the eye contact, which is the thing that I always find that getting your characters to look like they're purposefully looking at something is a difficult thing to accomplish, where you really have the eyes focused in, because usually they'll look, maybe one will be a little too off to one side or be a little too over there, or they'll feel spacey. But the fact that he dropped the eyelids down to be resting right on the pupils and the iris, and then got the direction right, so you've got them pushed over to the corners here, really sets that mood of just a really direct focus to those eyes, and that's really lovely. This one I thought was just a really cool imagination idea here, with the giant egg and little guy coming out the top of it. Really, just I always like visual imagery that's just something that I had an idea that I really hadn't seen, not only just a different take on an old idea, but just something that I would have never thought of or haven't thought of yet. So definitely check out more stuff from him. I love his stuff. I think he's definitely someone that I'm going to start researching and studying even more. But I did want to share a quote with you guys that I was able to find from him, and that was, an artist has to be able to find elements for his work from everything he sees during each day. I think that's a great quote. It's something that I think is probably year 2, year 3, maybe even year 4 for people who are pushing to understand a medium and master it, is that you eventually get to this point where you're kind of always working, or that portion of your brain is so active and has been pushed so much that it's just something that you recognize in daily life all the time. So you're like, oh, that's a really, if you're listening, let's say you're a musician and you hear a really neat hook in the middle of the song. Maybe you don't like the whole song, but just how they went from like the chorus to the verse was an interesting way, and you're like, I wish I could, I kind of want to play with that idea, maybe not use that exact same thing, but a version of that. Or if you're a painter and you go outside and the clouds are really interesting that day, you're like, I want to get this little bit of inspiration here, or oh, that would be so much cooler if I could tilt it this way or tweak it that way. And I think it's just a mindset to try and grow to be in. But I'm getting rambly, so let's go ahead and get into some animation. This is the No Face Boy rig. It's a free rig you can grab over at David O'Reilly, part of the External World rig pack that he has over there. I will throw a link in the description below to all the things that we've mentioned so far. And if you're not familiar with what we'll be doing for the rest of the video, I go off and I find a rig that I've never used before. It's a free resource for you guys to play around with as well. And we kind of go from there. A little bit of over the shoulder, just hang out with me while I animate, a little bit of talking through the process. But the main goal of doing these videos each and every day is to hopefully encourage you guys and inspire you to go off and create your own stuff each and every day, so that you're taking another step in your journey towards mastering whatever medium it is that you're passionate about. So without further ado, let's go ahead and play here. I was feeling like this guy seems like he's a little emo-ish, so let's see if we can't make his posing a little bit moody here. So let's give him some bad posture here. Drop his head down a little bit more. Pull the hips back to offset that. Let's see, can we put the feet in IK? That'll help us here. So they stay planted on the ground. Rotate that back. Is that too far pushed, or do we like that? Feels a little far, but let's tweak the arms a little bit and see if we don't end up liking that a little bit more. Maybe we could push the belly itself just back a little bit more. So maybe we'll grab the hip here, that individual controller, and we'll push it back just so it's kind of got a little protruding belly out. And maybe push the hips a little bit more forward, a little more down. And then let's go ahead and we'll have him do some small steps here. And let's go ahead and rotate. Should we do the feet inward? Yeah, we'll pick him a little bit pigeon-toed here. Maybe we'll make it a little bit wider gait as well. Drop the hips down just a little bit. And I'll go ahead and save our file here real quick. We are using Autodesk Maya 2014 for today's video. For more information on that, check out all the links in the description below. And let's continue tweaking out this pose. Forgot to start my secondary backup recording, so I just popped that on as well. Just like I mentioned all the time, it's good to have multiple versions and to save often. Same thing goes if you're ever making videos. You always want to try and have a backup recording going on just in case. And for any of you who are interested, I use XSplit. I think it's a wonderful program. The best one that I've been able to find to get a fairly good frame rate, at least with the current system that I'm running, to be able to do animation and get a good frame rate while I'm doing it, and also hopefully, I'm sure we could do even higher resolution stuff too, but I think it's more important to have a good frame rate for showing off animation rather than a higher resolution, because it's more important about the movement, you know. So let's keep tweaking out these hand poses. Let's try to make them a little more interesting here if we can, and a little different, a little bit of variety between the two sides. And there's kind of a weird thing. You see a little bit of like see-throughness on those hands sometimes, so it's kind of throwing me off a little bit, but we'll work past it. It's not a big deal. Hand pose is a little too similar. That one in a little more. Yeah, I think we could keep them like that. Maybe we should do a little more on this side. Just to have a little more variety. Yeah. Okay. So I think that's a fairly okay pose to start with. And we'll go from there. I'll just do a quick little walk cycle for today's video. So let's go ahead and set our frame range. We're going to go from 0 to 48. Go ahead and grab everything here. And actually, maybe I'll go a little bit longer than that. We'll see. And make sure we just have our NURB curves, NURB surfaces, and polygons selected. Grab everything. We'll hit S on our keyboard to set our first frame. I think I'm going to work on 7s. I might even switch to 8s here rather than 6s. Because if it's going to be kind of a slower walk or kind of a more mopey walk, I'm going to slow it down so it's not as quick as you normally would run. So I'm just varying in between here, and I want to go, I think we go 56, isn't that what we usually do for stuff that's on 7s to have it cycle correctly. Yeah. I might even go 8s, yeah, now that I'm thinking about it. Still feels a little too fast. So let's set the other foot up here, and then we'll move that back there, duplicate that frame, and we're just flipping pretty much between those two keys right now. But I think this is going to be too fast. So we'll watch it again once both feet are working. And I want to really kind of nail my timing in a little bit better here. Oh, you know, it's because we're doing it on 7s, not even on there. Okay, that would be the main reason here. Because normally it would be on 12s instead of there. So let's go back in. Totally biffed that one up. So let's go Window, Animation Editors, Graph Editor. And we'll take everything we have on 7, put that at 14 here. That's the reason it was going like that, is because I was doing it at double speed. I was wondering why it was going so fast here. My mind's going too fast for my feet. Feel like blowing my mind up. Okay. Go back here. Delete that. Delete that. Now let's see if we, pretty sure it should be, yeah, that's fine timing. I was going to say, why is it so quick? It's because I did double speed for some reason. There. So that graph editor's hiding there. Push it back up. And let's see. Alright, so I got basic feet timing working. And I always try to get in a good kind of timing pass and a good pass on the feet and the hips before I really get too much. I have this, I don't know if it's an issue or if it's a style choice or it's the way that my brain works, but I find for when I'm being creative, I have to do like a real rough kind of, I don't know, how can I explain this? When I do my animation, I like to see it functioning, and then I can tweak it until it gets to a place that I like it. It's hard for me to build in exactly what I want and just go from there. I try to do almost like an iterative animation where it's like a first pass, then a second pass, then a third pass, then a fourth pass, rather than step 1 to step 2 to step 3 to step 4 to step 5 and then have it done, which I think is a good method to have. It helps your observation and everything, but sometimes I think it would be more helpful if I could just do, okay, I want it there, I want it there, I want it here, and then you're all done and everything. But that tends to be how I work. It's how I draw as well. I usually have like a sketchy, rough skeleton outline, and then I go from there. Without that, if I try to go straight into how I want it to look, it never really turns out the way that I want. So I tend to do, you know, lay the groundwork first, then build upon that, and then tweak it and build upon that. And it's probably a different methodology than a lot of people have, but it tends to be the kind of workflow that works for me. But you guys will all come up with your own workflow. So let's keep tweaking. I think we'll do a little bit less than that. Alright, and let's do a little bit of twist to favor the front planted step here. And back there, back here, back there. You know what I do like about these rigs in particular? I tend to not have a very good methodology for approaching heads and necks when they are constrained really tightly. So I like it, like if you'll watch right here where we're going, there's really not a whole lot of movement on the head. I mean, obviously there's some movement because we're going up and down with the hips, so you see that. But as far as the rotate and stuff, we're not going to have to counter animate the rotate, which is really nice. So I personally tend to like that. It works well for my workflow if I don't have to spend time counter animating, but I can just get right into the posing that I want. And let's do a little bit of twist here. Again. This is probably too much, so we'll tone it down, and then back into our first one. because it's rotate X's, right? And like I said, between different rigs, sometimes the orientation, this would normally be like a rotate Y, but in this rig it's orientated. Orientated? That's a wonderful word. Hopefully you guys enjoy that one. Comments down below. Let's see. I feel like that's probably too much. So let's scale that back, and we'll probably scale the hips back as well. Let's scale the hips back a little bit more. So let's look at that rotate. There's a Y on the hips, but X on the chest, and we're just going to scale it back to probably about half of what it is. Let's see how that looks. And then I just feel like I want the top to not have so much movement. So we'll have the hips more exaggerated than the chest, so we'll scale this back a little bit more. Try and keep it fairly balanced between one side and the other. And let's see how that looks. Okay, yeah, I like the hips being more active than the upper torso here. Okay, and let's start setting our passing positions on the feet. And again, I want these to be almost labored or not putting much effort into these steps, which I guess would be opposite of labored. Because I don't want them to necessarily feel... I guess that's one way to describe it. But just so that he wouldn't be putting a lot of effort into lifting them up. So we'll keep him close to the ground, because seems like this character would be not really into putting effort into things. So you don't want him to give really too pronounced of steps. Even those feel a little too high, but we're gonna add some rotate and stuff with the heel, so I'll keep them pretty close to that, but we'll even them out a little bit more and probably lower them just a bit more than that. Okay, and let's do a little bit of drag back. There. Drag back there. And let's get the other side here. Drag back there. And drag back there. Let's see. Let's do a little bit less rotate. Y still feels a little bit busier than I want. Just keep tweaking that until it gets right in that sweet spot. Feels a little better. And then let's try offset that a little bit more. So right now we're getting, excuse me, I'm losing my voice or something there. What's going on? And we'll keep it. Okay, let's look at the side here. We'll do a little bit of push over there, a little bit over there. Like I said, this isn't. This is going to be more of a toned down walk. Let's even that out. So translate X. Keep it balanced here. It's not too far one way or the other, or t'other. Let's do a little bit of rotate here. Just a little bit. This might even be too much, but we'll offset it in the chest here in a second. So yeah, let's clean that up. Bring it up there. Balance it out a little bit more. Let's see. Okay, and let's get into the chest here. Too much, but we'll see. Okay, rotate Z, rotate Z. Let's balance these guys out. just a hint of that in there. Try and keep those arms fairly level. Let's see. I feel like we have too much translate X here. Let's scale that back. Because I think I'm going to do this from a side perspective. I just like the kind of line throughout the body there a little bit better. Yeah, let's tone down the rotate Z then a little bit more. Because it just feels too over-exaggerated from this angle. Let's do about half of that. That feels better. Let's do a little tiny swing on the arms here. Go forward there. Like I said, just a little bit of swing there. I'm going to keep those arms pretty minimal. Let's just universally bring that so it's not so extreme forward. We'll even cut that down even more. Like I said, I just want a little bit of movement in that arm. And maybe even less. And let's push it so it's not really going back, but kind of floating in the middle there. Okay, let's look at the other arm. Those two. But let me go the other way. For some reason I was doing that backwards. Let's see. Let's see that now. A little too busy. Universally, we'll bring that back a little more. I think we're still a little too far forward in Z. Maybe that might be a little better. Let's translate Z. Okay. Yeah, feels a little, maybe a little bit further back. Try and keep the body balanced a little more. And let's see, should we do a little bounce in the head? Let's try that. Let's see if we like it. I'm guessing it's going to be too much, so we might switch with our timing or our posing. I'll try and get a little bit of movement in that neck. Okay, so we want it to go here, but we want it inverted, I think. And tone it down a little bit more. And we'll throw another key in here. That is this one. Bring that up and over. Yeah, let's see. It's still too busy. I think we could probably find something that would work with this. Feels like it's too much movement right now. Like it's purposefully bobbing rather than just kind of moving based on the movement of the body itself. And there's sometimes where you want to have like a purposeful body movement if it's something that's more of a personality thing. But you don't want it to feel like that if you're just trying to get something that feels a little natural. Feels a little better. Yeah, let's look at the head itself. Maybe we'll do a little bit of movement there. Yeah, I think I'm going to keep this at the same timing as the hips, so it's like every 7. It's starting at 7 versus delete that, make sure it's on there. And back, and I'm sure I gotta clean that up. So let's look at that. Yeah, it's not that great. Okay. Bring that back up here, scale it back down a little bit more. Yeah, let's see. A little too busy. So we'll scale head back a little bit more. There we go. It feels better. Alright, we'll go ahead and save that. And let's look at the forearms. Maybe we'll do a little bit there, here. So we'll have it swing forward a little bit there. Back a little bit. Okay, and forward a little bit. Back a little bit. And it's probably too much. Like I said, I just want a little teeny bit here. So let's scale it back so that the arm isn't so stiff, but we still want it to feel stiff. I know that sounds weird, but we want a little bit of movement in there, but we want the overall feeling to still feel a little stiff. So it feels like it's a little bit favoring the forward too much, so let's universally move it back a little bit more. I feel like we could add a little more drag back. Let's see. And maybe we'll just tone it down about 10% from that. Like I said, still feels fairly stiff, but at least we have a little bit of movement in there. So keeping that same feeling, but also loosening it up just a teeny bit more. We'll do a little bit in the wrists as well. And just as it's difficult to get really over the top animation, really bouncy, more like Warner Brothers style chaotic animation, I think it's just as equally as difficult to really get subtle animation. It's not super hard to get, just mediocre stuff, but to really get those tight little, like if you watch a lot of Disney or DreamWorks or Pixar movies, they'll do those up close facial where it's, there's just a hint of a little bit of movement in the lips or in the cheeks or something like that that just helps sell an emotion and everything. That's just as difficult, I think, to really get that precision in the minute details as getting that snappy on one's wacky pose of like Wreck-It Ralph, where they're all doing that, on the dancing scene. I personally, from my experience, I think both of those are take a good amount of skill, and a lot of times you'll see there's certain animators that are really good at body mechanics, and then there's other animators that are really good at acting moments and everything too. And you'll find there's things that, and I think it's really just what your proclivity is or what you're drawn to, that you tend to want to focus on a little bit more. One of the things that I feel like when I was first learning, I was really not that great at was body mechanic stuff, and I still feel like that's part of the reason why I choose to do the series with you guys as well, is to just like I talk about, encouraging and hopefully inspiring you guys to go off and take another step in your journey. This is pushing myself to get myself out there a little bit more, and also push my skills and try different things and try different rigs and push different ideas more so. So I love doing this series with you guys each and every day, and hopefully you get something out of it, or at least get a little bit of motivation or encouragement or anything too. One of the things that I used to talk about a while ago is I hope if you guys are watching this, I hope you guys subscribe, even if you never watch another one of my videos ever again, or you dislike it, or any of that kind of stuff. I hope you subscribe to the channel just so that I put stuff up every day, and maybe maybe just by looking at, you know, your subscription feed, you see that there's another video that I put up every day, and it'll just be a reminder to you guys to, you know, follow your dreams and push yourself and try each and every day, even if it's not successful. You know, I'm gonna butcher this, I'm sure. I'm just gonna say there was an inventor of something, because I can't remember if it was Edison or Tesla or Einstein or who it was, because that's just the way my brain's working today. But they said, how did you discover or invent the phone, or how did you discover the, you know, theory of relativity, or whatever it was. And their thing was, I learned, or I did 4,000 ways not to come up with that. That's how I did it, you know, versus, you know, just coming up with the idea right away. Now, there's a lot of mistakes and trial and error and all that stuff, and that's why, you know, you just gotta spend that time getting in front of the paper if you're an illustrator or a comic book artist, or spend that time in front of the saxophone or whatever it is that you're passionate about, and just put that time and that effort in there so you get that muscle memory. So eventually, you know, the kind of stuff that you worry about is going to become natural for you. Let's grab all of them. And so you can get more into the minutia and the thinking and the thought processes and changing the medium and pushing it further and all that great stuff, and all the, you know, just how do you do it, or how, you know, the basics, the fundamentals become so natural to you that that's not even something that you think about or you consider anymore. I think that's really the goal of practicing and pushing and growing and learning, is so that eventually you can get to that point where you can add something to the medium itself. It's just ramblings of a crazy man, though. So let's do a little bit of drag in the fingers here. Maybe a little too over-exaggerated. I think it's on the curl wheel. I think the extension's okay. Let's see. Let's pull it back a little bit there too. Okay. And let's grab all of the tips and all the mids. Had the hiccups today. Sorry about that. Delay them a frame and grab all of the tips, and we'll delay those a frame as well. And grab the index, everything on the index finger. You know, push it forward a frame. This is just to mix it up. It's you know, a way that I found that I like to cheat finger movements, so I can do something quick where I get all of the digits in there and kind of mix it up a little bit more. It gives me a rough working pass there. I think I'm going to take all of the, I'm going to try and stiffen these up a little bit more, all the mids here, and I'm going to scale it back a little bit more, so make the extremes a little less up and a little less down here. There we go. Okay, let's go ahead and save that, and let's look at the other side here. All of the parts of the fingers, make sure we are. Well, I think it's cool that you can kind of see through them. It's kind of makes it a little bit harder without a gooey picker or anything to grab all the right controllers here, but it just takes a little bit of time, and that's okay. And let's look here. We'll go forward, and back here. I'm sure this is over exaggerated, but I'll get there. What's that great tip that I want to say it's Keith Sente, wonderful animator, and one of not saying that I play favorites, but one of the teachers that I feel like I really learned a ton from when I was first learning. I want to say it's him, could have been someone else, but I tend to attribute a lot of the positive influence in animation that I've gotten towards his route, and that was it's always easier to go too far and pull it back. I think that's the over exaggerate and pull back is a lot better of a mentality to have than to continue to inch forward and inch forward and inch forward. And let's go ahead and grab the tips and the mids, and we'll delay those a frame, and then all the tips here, and we'll delay those a frame, and take the index finger, all of that stuff, and push it forward a frame, because usually here's a cool thing that I've probably, I don't know, have I talked about this before? Maybe not. Let me know. Comments down below. Just a side note while you're animating. Cool thing, because I always look at like way people's bodies work and everything, because the part of trying to grow as an animator or an illustrator or any of that stuff. But when you make a fist like this, watch how the fingers go. See the fingers, pinky leads here usually. That's natural, so you always start with the pinky, and then when you open them, you start with the index. So it's an interesting thing that you probably don't think about a lot. If you've been doing this a long time, you probably already know all this stuff. But so leading with the index is how I tend to do things, because that's usually the finger that kind of leads the way that your muscular structure and your bone structure are there. But you can also do it the opposite way. But I tend to think that usually leads towards better hand posing if you can lead at least with one side or the other, and have I usually do index leads the stuff, then these two go usually on the same frame with a little variation, and then the pinky follows, or vice versa works too. It depends on what you're going with, but it's just a quick cheat way for doing more interesting hand posing than doing everything. So it's all a lot of times one of the things that I struggled with when I was first learning animation, and again, I'm always learning, never going to say that I'm a master at all, just trying to share what I know and what I've learned with you guys each and every day, is setting up my files so that everything was was really pose to pose. And that's it's really good to have pushed poses, and I feel like I probably don't push my poses nearly enough as I should these days, just because it's hard to get really pushed, sharp, tight poses and do an animated shot within an hour with you guys each and every day. I tend to just do more for the overall feel of the shot than really as super sharp as I would do on something that I would put on my reel. Let's see if that works right. Yeah, it feels about right. What was I talking about? I was talking about one of the first things problems that I had that I was noticing. I was watching this guy put up an animated shot in one of the awesome Facebook groups that are out there, probably 10,000 hours or Animators Assemble, or one of those great animation groups. There's tons of them on Facebook, wherever it is. If you're on Reddit, if you're on Facebook, whatever it is that you tend to find is your social media thing of choice, try to hook up with some animators, just so you might get some inspiration, or you might get get your eye working more by watching other people's animation, so you can either be critical of it or praise it and try to copy it. Not copy it in a good way, but anyways, I'm getting rambly here. Try not to have your animation feel like everything hits on 18, and then everything hits again on 32, and then everything hits again on 52. That's a great way to start off, like, the building blocks for your animated shot, but eventually, unless you're hitting one of those cartoon stops where you're just, bam, smacking into a stop and everything stops on one frame, even then you're going to have some ripple and some recoil and stuff. Like if you have a character running and then you want to get an abrupt stop, you'd still have a little bit of overlap that you'd want to build into, like, the ears or the extremities, or to have the arms swing forward or something, so you can show that kind of stuff. And a lot of times you'll notice that, like, everything, like, let's just say it's a character jumping and it's a quick shot, so you'll see, this is frame 1 is here, and then frame 12 is up here, and then frame 30 is down here, and everything just kind of goes like this, instead of, like, a press down and a push off and some recoil, and so there's some variety with your arms and your legs and your hips, and they all kind of are hitting at least a couple frame variations there. It'll help loosen up your animation there. And that was something that even sometimes you'll notice it just offsetting by a frame or two, grabbing a couple portions and stuff really loosens your animation up. How we did the head and the neck here, if we would have kept those both on every 7 frames at the same time, it wouldn't feel as loose there. So you want to break up some of that movement there too, just so it feels a little more natural. And that's stuff that'll take a while to, for those of you who are way more advanced than I am, you guys already know all this stuff. Preaching to the choir, maybe I'll just remind you of something that you already knew. But for those of you who are still learning, just a little tip that to try and break your animation up. And it's hard. There's a great program that I don't use anymore. I believe it's called Tween Machine. That really helped me before I was able to really see how to do that for myself. And what it does is it gives you kind of like it's like if someone else is animating your shot for you. Basically, it gives you a better in-between frame between point A and point B by favoring the point A or point B throughout your whole rig a little bit more. So check that program out. I really liked it when I was first learning. Now I tend to think that it's still fairly again, I'm sure you can, I'm not putting it down, I think it's a great program, but I think once you get to a certain point you want to have more control, so I tend not to use add-ons as much. Also, just because I'm recording as well, I don't want more things running in the background process here. Another reason I don't is because sometimes, and this is just a personal thing, I feel like add-ons are cheating a little bit. But again, I'm trying to get past that to where, what's the end result? The end result is it going to look good or not? And whatever can help you achieve the best aesthetic looking thing, you want to use that. So, never feel like it's cheating. It's just a personal thing for me. I feel like I'd rather be the one putting in each and every frame rather than having a machine help me along do it, even though I'm animating in Maya, which is a machine that helps me animate. Wow, I'm getting rambly today, but we got the toes working. So that was the main point here. We want to really mix up anything else. Maybe we'll do a little bit of compression in the chest here, or let's see if we can do a little bit of belly. Can we do a little belly? Let's see. Set that. Probably do that, right? If we just did a little bit of that, and probably this is too much right now, but add a little bit in there. Down, up, down, up, and then back again. Okay, and that was mainly translate X in this case. And again, let's just put only a little bit of that, but hopefully loosen up the belly area a little bit more than what we have right now. Just put a little hint of that in there. I think we'd probably push it down a little bit lower. And then what if we added a little bit of rotate as well? Try to loosen it up a little bit more. And notice this is the actual hip controller rather than like the root controller, because if we were doing that on this one, we'd have to do a lot of offsetting. So I tend to go in and put all my information then on the root controller, and then once I have that working, then I can go in and kind of add a little bit of accents here on the belly itself. Yeah, let's see if that feels better. Probably a little too much rotate Y there, so let's scale it back a little bit more. About like 20% less than what we have right now. When I say 20% less, it's not like there's a plug-in or something that I'm just saying, oh, 20% less. It's just, you know, an arbitrary percentage to way to kind of look at your lines there. And maybe a little bit less than that still. Okay, then maybe we could try to get a little bit of compression in the chest as well. So let's see. Which controls? I think it's X here and Y in the chest. So, like I said, I just want a little tiny bit of this just so that structure of the spine in the back has a little bit of movement to it. It's not really something that I want to feel or anything, and I already feel like the head's working pretty well, so I don't really want to mess with that too much. But I still want to get a little bit of movement throughout that back portion so it doesn't feel so locked up there. But I want this main feeling from this shot, so I don't want to mess with it too much. And I'm going to offset a little bit there. Okay, and let's clean that up, and we'll probably have to do a couple of tweaks here and there till we get it balanced out to the right amount that we have it. And I think we're on the way to something. So let's look at it now. Let's see. Probably too much in the chest here, so scale it back a little bit more. And now it's too much in the hips. We're kind of feeling it there, so scale that back and let's see. Okay, like I said, it's not a lot, but a little bit of movement there, so that back didn't feel so. Should I push the hips just a teeny bit forward? Let's see. Alright, I think that works. We could definitely spend another hour or so tweaking it up, but I think we got something kind of playful here. So let's take a look back at where we started. We were looking at the beautiful work of Sergio Toppi. I love his stuff. I think you guys should really check it out. If you haven't seen it, I feel like he really plays with the medium of kind of the comic book page and the panel layout really interestingly, in almost more of a old-fashioned illustrative medium meets, you know, comic book sensibilities. And he said an artist has to be able to find elements for his work from everything he sees during each day. I think that's a great idea, a great tool, a great thing to try and implement to get in the mindset of kind of always be working or always be looking for inspiration or always be looking for how you can utilize the world around you to improve your medium that you want to become great at. And I think to the same thing, I'm reading through Drawn to Life Volume 1 again by Walt Stanchfield. I think I always throw a link to it too. It's one of my favorite books. And same thing that you'll probably hear in a lot of religious or spiritual studies as well. And you'll find, maybe you won't, maybe it's just me, possibly, you'll find that the more you get involved or focused on being creative and pushing a medium or trying to master it or anything, you kind of hit the same sort of levels with, here's Kitty, the sentiment is that I'm trying to get from the book that sounds philosophical or somewhat the same thing that a lot of different belief systems talk about, is be careful what you put in. You know, always be aware, because that's the stuff that you're going to pull on when you're going to create stuff. So it's difficult to try and have a positive mindset and be in good, you know, energetic mood to put out and create. So just be careful. And that's not to say you can't go in and experience things or try things that maybe some people don't love, but just be aware that that might come out somewhere in your work. So I think that'll wrap it up. I'm getting rambly today. I love you guys lots. I had fun doing this one with you. A little more chatty than usual, but maybe something I said speaks to you in some way. Thanks again for all the likes and subscribes. I love you guys lots. I got